That's always been my reminder. Continue to make sure that you don't lose sight of the purpose, the ultimate purpose of what, I think I'm doing with the audience and everything is like, laughter. If that's all you get out of it, that's still good in my book. At least you're getting some laughs. I get so many messages like I was having a bad day and watched one of your videos and I was able to laugh through some things and I definitely had to laugh my way through some things, and at the same time to make sure that I am remaining authentic and I am really trying to push a positive message is a big part of why I am doing what I'm doing. Because I think the world needs more of it, and I needed it. I needed it big time in my life, and I'd gotten to a place in my life where I was just very unhappy. I'd gone through a divorce after getting out of the military, all these different things through that journey of all these different hurts and areas to grow in and the addiction stuff and all this kind of stuff. And then to land here, I think it impacts my message. It helps impact my message more because it's got real meaning behind it,
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Invictus Mindset Podcast. Today's guest is bringing positivity through laughter. He's using fitness to help people find their purpose, and he's a positive social media presence that spreads laughter while helping people live healthier. Today, I'm excited to unpack the story of Evan Slaughter. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, brother. Glad to be here.
Dude, I'm pumped to connect with you. We've had so much fun offline, and you just have a really incredible energy about you. And I noticed that from the very first day you popped into Invictus. Like, life is very fascinating in the sense that, like, there's so much that hits the human experience that doesn't meet the eye. Yeah. And I think you do that perfectly in the sense of, like, you obviously have a story. You have a journey that you've traveled, but simultaneously, you're just a good dude. And so thanks for taking the time to bullshit with us today, man.
Dude, I'm excited. I'm honored to be here. I've seen some of the other guests you have, and it was an honor to have the chance to be on the pod, man. Yeah,
totally. We've crossed paths with some really cool people with some great stories. And yours is obviously incredible as well, and I'm excited to share that with our audience. Before we dive in, dude, what you been up to? Like, you were up in LA doing some cool stuff with Chubbies.
Yeah, dude. Chubbies, by the way, give a little shout out here, the shorts and the shirt, all Chubbies, everything from me today. It was cool. They've been great to work with. But yeah, came down via train.
Nice.
Yeah, from Los Angeles, did a little photo shoot in Los Angeles, came here to hang with you. Was number one on my list.
I appreciate that, man.
And then shoot a little content. So
I dig it, man. I dig it.
The train.
Yeah, what was that like?
It's been a while since I've been on a passenger train.
Yeah?
I was pumped about it until it actually happened. But I was pumped about it. I felt like I was, time traveled backwards,
Yeah.
Like I was going to think of all these 30s and 40s things to say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I felt like I needed the right luggage and all that just to be,
Did you dress like an exquisite gentleman?
Yeah, you're supposed to dress really nice. And it's supposed to be a very luxurious, process or a way to travel.
Did you use a little extra mustache wax before getting onto the train?
Absolutely. That's the story of my life. I always got to keep a little extra mustache wax on me. But
where did the mustache come from? Where did you want to start playing with that look?
Just a couple years ago, some buddies of mine, they were like, dude, you should rock a mustache. And I was like, nah. And then, I saw that it was kind of, it was back. The mustache is back. It was back. At least
why though,
now,
right?
Huh? No.
It's so that way you're not giving the world what they want, but you're giving them what they need.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I heard something else along those lines. I wish I could remember it. Only bad mustache is the one you haven't grown. Someone told me that the other day. And I was like, yes. But I got to tell you about the train. The train was awful.
Okay.
Was
the food awful? The people awful?
No, I'm not knocking the people. They were great, the train. But part of the track was down. I didn't know this, all right? And so we go one train, and then we have to stop and take a bus.
Oh, jeez.
Basically a Greyhound. So like you
audible. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a problem. We need an audible.
So we get our bags, and everybody packs onto these buses, and then as soon as we get all, on the way, we hit bad California traffic, like bumper to bumper. We were 45 minutes late for the next train. Of course, the train was sitting there waiting on us, but I was sweating like a dog. I mean, I'm like holding my luggage, and we're like, because the bus has those air brakes and everybody.
Totally.
It was terrible.
Oh, that's a tough experience.
But they say it's fixed now, and I think they don't have to do that.
Are you going to give the train another shot, man? Or is it just a one time and now you're done?
I was so hurt by like, y'all couldn't have put this in the details. Like y'all knew this was y'all knew this happened before. Because I started looking at my tickets, and you have 3 tickets. One was a train, and then I looked at the other one, and I was like, this is a picture of a bus. This little emoji has wheels. This does not look like the train emoji. Yeah. And then the third ticket had the train emoji thing as a little symbol, and I was like, something's up, But whatever, I think I would, as long as they promise me that I don't have to ride a bus during part of my train experience.
Yeah, totally.
Hopefully,
eventually we can get you like a private jet or a helicopter or something.
Yeah, I would do that for sure.
That'd be quite the experience. And yeah, man, you did some cool stuff shooting at UCLA with Chubbies and got to cross paths with some pretty famous NFL dudes.
Yeah,
Travis
that was
Kelce, George Kittle. Just to name drop a couple.
Yeah, that was the Tight End University thing in Nashville a few weeks back. It was a really cool event. Met Theo Vaughn, which was fun.
What was it like meeting him? I've listened to him on Rogan so many times.
Yeah, and his podcast that he does. So he's actually out of Nashville. Mm-hmm. It was great. He was cool. He was very friendly. Got to talk with him a little bit. Try to give myself a little plug. Like, oh, by the way, I do comedy also, Theo. But he was cool, man. It was a lot of fun.
That's great, man. Speaking of comedy, I genuinely laugh when I consume your content. Like your stuff.
You're just saying that.
Well, honestly, like Luke and I were sitting here watching it, and like it's really funny. Like you definitely have a gift.
Yeah.
Where did that gift kind of come from in the world of comedy? Like it feels like you're being authentically and unapologetically yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like it really hits strong. Like, is a Netflix special potentially in the future? And where did this all start?
Well, first of all, I appreciate it. That's the goal, is to bring some humor. That's where I kind of came up with the idea of positivity through laughter, because who doesn't like to laugh? If we're laughing in a healthy way, I think that's definitely a big part of my life.
Totally. Have you ever seen Patch Adams before?
Yeah.
Right? He's healing people through laughter.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like laughter is potentially one of the best forms of medicine for all of us.
Right. I agree totally. So that was a big part of it. But, I was always the smart ass kid growing up, the class clown, getting in trouble, in school for some of the stuff I would say and some of the comebacks I had. And so I was just always that way growing up, I guess.
That's awesome. Was it ever facilitated based on any form of like validation? Or when you did those things, you got laughter, you got praise, you got love from certain individuals that maybe otherwise would have not given you the time of day at that time?
Totally. I used laughter a lot to as a way to fit in, as a way for people to like me. I felt like if I could make people laugh, then, maybe they would like me, or maybe I could hang out with these people if I could get them to laugh. Or I was also always the type that I'm kind of still this way now, I guess, but I don't know how to word this, but I don't want there to be anybody that doesn't like me. So if I feel like someone just doesn't like me,
yeah.
It's like I go out of my way to try to make that person like me, and I think a lot of that was my attempts for that was using laughter. If I could get them to laugh, genuinely laugh, let me find a way to make them laugh. Usually that ended them with camaraderie
and bringing
me.
Them close to you and liking you. And I definitely think that probably also comes from your positive intention, right? Like if somebody doesn't like you, you're like curious as to why.
Right.
Right? Like, hey, I'm doing good in the world. I'm trying my best over here. It's an anomaly and a little bit confusing as to why you don't like me.
Yeah.
But maybe it is for X, Y, and Z reason based on your historical reference or your past.
Right.
So I'm going to use this awesome tool that's a part of my ethos. And I'm actually just going to unapologetically share that with you.
Yeah.
And then let's form a bond, some camaraderie, some memories. And then inevitably, we'll like each other when we end up, crossing paths in the future. Trident Coffee is sponsoring this episode of the Invictus Mindset Podcast.
My guys over at Trident taught me something really important this last year. That we are all a bundle of stories, both good and bad, and everything in between. At Trident, they're storytellers. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. They help create connections through symbology and storytelling that engage their customers on an emotional level, and this distinguishes them from other coffee brands. You can find Trident in Imperial Beach and in Coronado. They offer over 14 plus nitro cold brews along with dairy-free options. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from their keto bakery. All of these options will allow you to support your health and fitness journey with Trident Coffee. They're more than just a coffee company. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code Invictus20 for 20% off online and in tap rooms. Once again, that's tridentcoffee.com. Use code Invictus20 for 20% off online and in tap rooms. Take your coffee experience to the next level. Two important factors for us over at Invictus Mindset are true care and attention to detail. My friends over at RX Smart Gear have been bringing innovative fitness tools to the market since 2009. From their award-winning Evo speed ropes, to their amazing gymnastics grips, to their line of inflatable fitness equipment, they're constantly looking to problem solve within the fitness industry. They're always allowing us to have our gear work for us rather than against us. Hop on over to RX Smart Gear and use discount code Invictus Mindset to shop their latest cutting-edge gear. Have your gear work with you and not against you.
That's a really cool thing, man. And you've been on this incredible fitness journey. You have a fitness background, former military personnel, like some really cool things to play with. But before we get into that, like where did Fit to Serve come from? You put out a really cool video kind of depicting some of the specifics as to why you chose that name.
Yeah. So, Fit to Serve, and this is something I get asked a decent amount. And so Fit to Serve for me, originally whenever I got out of the military and I came home.
Where's home?
Birmingham.
Okay.
Alabama. Yep. So I come back to Alabama and just kind of looking for something to do in college and going into the military. I was very physically fit, very interested in exercise, all those things. And I just was going through this thought process, I think exercise should be free. Like people get, they come, they hire a personal trainer, they pay gym dues, they do all this stuff, and sometimes that's a deterrent for them. But I get why that's there. It's definitely, a good personal trainer, that kind of stuff. If you can pay for it, definitely a quality thing to be able to afford. Having the gym membership, access to the equipment, all the stuff like that. But for those that are either too hesitant to get into the gym, or maybe they look at their budget and it's just not something that they choose to afford at that time. I was like, I'm going to do something on the weekends, have a little fitness class. We'll just go outside. We don't need any equipment. We'll do like a military style workout. We'll do push-ups. We'll do sit-ups. We'll go on little runs. We'll do bear crawls. We'll do whatever. And maybe that'll be a way to introduce some folks to fitness, and maybe it leads them to, getting a gym membership or taking that further. It
introduces the behavior change to them and also removes the barrier to entry.
Right. Because that was something that me and a friend always said, a buddy of mine that owned a gym that I worked at for a while before the military, because we would get people canceling, or they can't afford this, or this is too much. And then it's like, yeah, but what are you doing on the weekends? Maybe you go to the movies and buy food and see a movie, and you just racked up $40-$50 on that one trip. It's not that you can't maybe afford it. It's that you're choosing other things above that.
And that's a very, very important distinction for sure.
Yeah. So, so that was kind of part of the idea. Like, let me get some people out there, and maybe it leads to me getting back into personal training. Like, they enjoy the free outdoor workout on the weekends that I put on, and then maybe that leads to a further relationship. But I named that workout group Fit to Serve, and my mindset behind that was, in order to serve other people. That was something that started becoming passionate about. I was serving in the military in a way, and then when I got out of the military, I was kind of lost and trying to figure some things out, and but this concept of service to other people, whenever I would do that, I found that it made me feel better about myself, and I wasn't as depressed, and I wasn't as struggling with if I went and gave freely of myself, right? Mm-hmm. So I named this fitness group Fit to Serve, and the idea behind it was that in order to go serve, it's helpful to be physically fit. If we're not physically fit, then how do we go out and how can we be of service if we're not physically fit?
It's almost like this personal accountability piece around fill your cup before you pour into others.
Yeah,
and it sounds to me like you found great fulfillment in serving to others. And honestly, I mean, how many mindset gurus talk about that? How many people, emphasize, hey, if you're going through a hard time, make it about others. Lose yourself in the service of others and contribute to their journeys and love and support them in the pursuit of their peak expression. And inevitably, it's going to come back, right? Like help others, and inevitably it helps you too.
Right.
And I really do think that that's like a core value system in observing how you operate within your craft. And as you continue to evolve and grow, if more people did that, the world would be a really awesome place.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, and I'm not saying everybody's this way, but there's this serve me first. Mm-hmm. And it needs to be I, or what am I getting out of it? And inevitably, like it could just be take the chance to embark on this journey of helping somebody else who may not be able to help themselves.
Yeah.
And there's something metaphorically unique and special to that. And you're living it, man. It's really cool to see.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. So that was a big part. Like my focus during that fitness group was being physically fit in order to serve. But then we had a couple people. There was a lady who was even handicapped her whole life, in a wheelchair her whole life, that would come and try to do whatever she could do. And it made me think, and obviously I'm trying to get back in better shape now, but I'm still trying to be of service. So that changed for me. I had used that Fit to Serve name as my Instagram handle and some other stuff for the creation of that fitness group. And then it just kind of fizzled out over time, right? But I just kept the name. So when I started making comedy videos again, I just kept Fit to Serve the name, and I made it my TikTok handle, and I always liked it. But my mindset about what it meant changed a little bit. Because now, what I believe is that we're all fit to serve in some kind of way. Even that lady who was coming out that was handicapped, because she's not physically capable to do what everybody else can, does that mean she can't be of service? Absolutely not. So my mindset kind of changed with that. So instead of thinking of the word fit as physically fit, it just means we're equipped. We're all equipped in some way to be of service. And I started finding that purpose through comedy for me. I feel like I've been equipped my entire life to make people laugh. How can I use that of service? And I often reference, school teachers. I'm someone who, I couldn't never be a school teacher, I don't think. I don't care what age group it is, but I couldn't just imagine being in a room of screaming third graders right now and having to try to educate them. That's just not my purpose. I can tell you right now that's not my purpose, but there's people out there who it is. Mm-hmm. Not only do they do that as a job, but you talk to a lot of them, they love it, So they've got a purpose maybe behind that. So they're fit to do that, so I started trying to share this message of, what's your purpose? You're equipped to be of service and have a purpose in some way. Let's figure that out for you.
I think
so that's kind of
really
how
powerful.
It evolved a little bit.
I like that a lot. And also, as you've mentioned a little bit, in the midst of doing hard things, striving to get comfortable being uncomfortable, it inevitably bridges the gap between people, elevates connections, and then it helps you find your purpose if you're a little bit lost and you're in pursuit of what is my why. What is the thing that is, getting me out of bed in the morning, and the thing that I can pursue as my North Star? And if you were to quantify that and maybe like a quick little elevator pitch, what is the purpose of Evan Slaughter?
Man, I think the purpose of Evan Slaughter is to spread some love and positivity and kindness through laughter. So my goal has always kind of been reach people through comedy, right? And then share a positive message. And for me, this positive message right now, and it doesn't have to be one thing. hopefully it evolves and grows and changes, and I'll, learn through that. For me right now, it's the, I get a lot of people saying, I watch your videos and they help me get back to the gym. Well, at first that blew my mind, because I was really just making fun, not fun, making comedy videos, making things funny, kind of about my own fitness journey and trying to get back in shape and that kind of stuff. And then I found out it was helping other people.
Yep.
And that right there was my thing. So, just trying to use a gift that I feel like I've been given since birth, which for me is comedy. And then now how can I be of service with that gift?
Yeah, I think that verbalizes it very well. And just observing you, not just in the Invictus arena, but also in other arenas, you have this incredible gift of no fear, man. You're unapologetically yourself.
Yeah.
Our amazing coach, Fritz Nugent, was like putting together an amazing warm-up and having you guys carry stuff. And I just remember specifically, you're like, oh, he's having us go outside. That can't be good. And I just remember I was coaching in the corner and I heard that and I inevitably just started laughing. And I was like, you know what? What's great is that he's just being himself and there's comedy involved with that. But even that same comment, despite it being funny, it's also relatable to how many other people that are like,
they're thinking it and they're not saying it.
Yes. And there's magic in that though, man. Like the fact that you're willing to put yourself out there knowing that like, hey, that joke may not land. Somebody might not resonate to that. I could be shut down here. And inevitably you're just like, I'm going to go be me. And my hope that my hope is that it can serve people. And I think there's a lot of special magic that can grant others around you the permission to just be themselves and stop being so scared, right? How many people in the world are living lives humbly of quiet desperation? Where their goal is, I just want to make it to my pillow at night. And they're dancing and they're living this unauthentic life because they're fearful of how other people are perceiving them. Yeah. And I think I read that somewhere in your story around, you just got tired of feeling like you were living a lie. And you were like, I'm done with this shit. And I'm going to unapologetically be myself. And I'm going to find a way to grant others around me to do the same thing. And I'm going to empower them to enhance their health, their fitness, and inevitably that's going to then translate to helping all the other facets of their life. Yeah. It's a very cool thing. What are your thoughts when I mentioned some of those things? Like when you look at yourself through the lenses of somebody else, do those things resonate? Like, is that part of the goal? Or are you just like, you know what, I'm living, man?
No, that's definitely it. And it's just like you said, for a lot of my life, I was using dishonesty, different things to manipulate situations, right? Lying to others so that they would perceive me a certain way, lying to myself so I'd perceive myself that way. Just being manipulative about, maybe taking a truth and twisting it enough so it portrays me in a better light, and I found that ultimately just led to a lot of pain and broken relationships and distrust among people that you care about and, all these different things. Like, sometimes that works. It worked for a little while. If you meet somebody new, let's say you go on a date or whatever with a girl, and first date or whatever, first couple dates, you could tell her some things about you that might not exactly be true so that she sees you a certain way, he or she sees you a certain way, and then maybe they like you and that sparks a third date. But ultimately, if that relationship continues and you choose to continue to manipulate this person, you're going to get found out, because they're going to realize who you really are. So I spent all this time, just younger, working out when I was younger to want to look good so that people would see me a certain way. And so I would portray this envision of, oh, this dude's ripped, he's strong, I shouldn't mess with him, or, oh, he's attractive, or, oh, he lives a healthy life because of the way he looks. And that was the wrong motivation for me to want to be fit, so it didn't really last through my life. So that's just one example. But whenever I got to where I had been through enough pain from living that way, and I wanted to finally, I was just hurt from different scenarios, struggled with some opiate addiction after getting, I was injured in Afghanistan, that kind of stuff, but had some opiate addiction issues even before the military. So, and I just found, I got to a place where I was tired of living that way, so I had to be honest with myself. And then it came to me, somebody very important in my life that kind of helped speak some life into me, and someone I can go to reminded me that, hey, Why do you care so much what everybody thinks about you? You know, why is that your driving force, what everybody thinks about you? You know, why don't you start looking at yourself and figuring out how you're going to be happy with yourself, you know, and what that looks like for you. So I just got honest with myself. And, you know, I remember, you know, I haven't always been out of shape. For a lot of my life, I was in very good shape. But I can remember even when I was in really good shape, I couldn't see myself that way.
I might even argue that when you were in good physical shape, you weren't in good cognitive shape.
No, not at all. At all.
And I love your description of like fitness is being equipped.
Yeah.
You were partially equipped. You were equipped to the lenses of the external validation.
Yeah.
But you weren't internally equipped where you felt like you were able to validate yourself.
This episode is brought to you by HVMN, Health via Modern Nutrition. They launched the world's first ketone drink in 2017, and then in 2022 launched the version 2 of their exogenous ketone product line called Ketone IQ. I found that incorporating ketones into my morning routine increased my daily focus and energy. The beauty of this product is that you can stack it. It doesn't even have to replace your morning routine. My morning routine looks like taking the dog on a walk, hitting my daily shot of Ketone IQ, hopping in the cold plunge, and then finishing it off with a nice Trident coffee while I soak up some morning sunlight. Try out some ketones for yourself by using the code Invictus for 20% off Ketone IQ. Ketones are a super efficient fuel for your brain that leaves you feeling energized and clear-headed. Give it a shot. I promise you won't regret it. Once again, use code Invictus for 20% off Ketone IQ. Move fast and break shit. This is one of the core values at LSKD and something that we fully resonate with here at the Invictus Mindset Podcast. LSKD develops functional sportswear with a streetwear aesthetic that's on a mission to inspire you to chase the vibe through sport, fitness, and adventure. Through my experiences with LSKD products and their team members, I have found a brand that I can call home that keeps me performing at my highest level through fitness and business. I train daily in the rep shorts and love the versatility they offer so I can go from training at the gym directly to meetings, client consults, running errands, or preparing for podcasts. The LSKB vibe has finally reached San Diego, and we want you to experience it too. Go to us.lskd.co to start shopping today. We want to inspire you to chase the vibe.
Right, and my motivation was all wrong, and I wasn't happy, and I was still having to be manipulative because I could never, even though I was in good shape, especially compared to now, I still didn't see myself that way in the mirror, so I just wasn't truly happy. So after all that pain and going through all that, and I finally, speaking with some people and doing some things about it, I finally got to a place where I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm tired of it. I'm just going to be happy with my life. And I'm gonna see what that truly feels like. So I focused on, and I would have to sometimes remind myself throughout the day to stop caring what people thought about me and just be me. And a lot of that was expressed through some of the videos I was making, especially early on. And I found that people found them funny. Yeah. But also every time I would make a video with my shirt off or whatever, even though I knew I didn't look how I wanted to or this and that, it felt so freeing. Mm-hmm. It was freeing. And so I got to this place where I was like, dude, this is great. I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm confident for the first time. I'm happy for the first time. And what that did was that led me to a place where now I actually care about my physical health. Mm-hmm. Now that's led me to a place where I want to get back in shape. I'm starting to work on my diet. I've been exercising a lot more regularly, jumping into the CrossFit stuff, doing these different things. Not because I want to look a certain way, but because I want longevity in life. Mm-hmm. I want to be physically healthy. Yeah, and I want to be able to do things. When someone says, "Hey man, let's go try to teach you how to surf for the first time," which Dave Newman did to me last time I was here. In my mind, I wanted to go, man, I can't get up on that board, dude. I'm too fat for that. You ain't got a board big enough. I'm on it, But, I went out there and I did it, and I'm learning that the more physically fit that I can be, the more I get to do opportunities like
it
that.
unlocks freedoms for you to, live life on your terms, where you're not owned by the limitations of your weight or your health or your mindset.
Yeah.
And that is honestly, like, for people listening, I think that's one of the greatest pieces of advice. Like, why do you train? You train so you can unapologetically go pursue any angle of life. If you want to surf, you want to snowboard, you want to play pickleball, you want to go play tennis, you want to go try to do a backflip, like, you have unlimited potential to pursue whatever it is that ignites your fire and allows you to feel alive. And I think that's what you found in this personal reflection and the growth and the self-love and the pursuits is like, it's not just about the six-pack. It's so much more than that. There's layers to this.
Right.
And it's you learning to love yourself and then simultaneously indulging in all of these magical things that encompass the human experience. And then you do a great job even taking it a step further and thinking, it's not just about my experience. It's about the experience of those around me and who I can inspire in the pursuit of me getting better, because other people are probably on a similar journey.
Yeah.
That's some powerful stuff right there, man.
Well, dude, and what a lot of people don't realize is that for most of my life, I have been in shape. The things I've done in the military. I used to kind of really be into running and ran a half marathon distance after I'd gotten out of the military. Like, that was the kind of shape I was in. So it's honestly sort of been a blessing for me to be out of shape, because it's allowed me to empathize with folks who are in my position.
Yep.
And look, I know now how hard it is to walk into a gym when you're out of shape, because even for someone like me who had all this experience in the gym and has done all this stuff, was personal training when I was younger, was, going to college for exercise science, was doing all these things. Back then it was nothing to walk into the gym because I was one of the in shape people. But now, even for me, with all that gym knowledge, I can remember the first time, going into a CrossFit class.
Wasn't it with your brother?
Well, yeah, actually it was. So he had gotten into CrossFit, and he's one that, he's never been really out of shape, but he just wasn't the working out type for a lot. He was very active and stuff, but this was kind of new for him too. And, I started doing some CrossFit comedy prior to that, because I've always known about CrossFit stuff, had some friends that did it, whatever, done some functional type workouts prior to that. But yeah, I think it was him that was like, yeah, you come do this class with us when I was in town for Christmas visiting. So, but I can remember the feeling of, man, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be sticking out like a sore thumb. I don't want to be the out of shape person that's there and can't do the exercise. So I know how hard that is for people.
Yeah.
And what I had to learn was through that confidence we talked about and learning to love myself. Hey, I'm just going to go and do it, know? And when I got there, I found out, well, hey, I'm not the only one that's out of shape. I'm not the only one that's new here. This is a very loving environment. People are open to helping, newbies, and actually excited to have you there, all those different things. So it was just, like I said, it's kind of been a blessing in disguise, like getting out of shape and then being able to relate now, and then working hard to try to get back into shape, and just being able to get in that mindset and know what other people go through whenever they are in that same boat.
There's so much maturity and empathy and compassion that's derived. Like, it's easy to give advice, but it's like, unless you've walked through somebody else's shoes, it's tough, man. And like, there's this whole cognitive perception around, hey, I need to train before I go to my first CrossFit class, right?
Yeah.
And, you had the courage to be like, you know what, I'm just going to show up. What advice would you give to other people that are potentially in pursuit of, like, man, I've been trying to get started and I'm scared to go in there. I'm intimidated. When I Google, the term CrossFit, or if I try to go to any sort of functional fitness training, I'm incredibly intimidated, and, I don't have anybody to go with. I want to show up, and I know there's instructors, but I feel like I'm going to be judged. Like, there's this whole onslaught of cognitive warfare that's going on. What advice would you give to some of those people that are in pursuit of trying to enhance the quality of their lives, but are a little bit fearful?
So one thing I'd like to say is, love yourself enough to not care what everyone else is going to think about you.
Yeah, that's great.
That's the first thing, is love yourself enough to not care what anyone else is going to think about you. So that way, because in your mind you're telling yourself, well, even though they may be nice, they're probably still thinking man, look how out of shape this person is, or blah, blah, blah. So if you can just get past that and
the
say
negative justifications, right?
Yeah. It's love yourself enough to not care, about what others are going to, how others are going to perceive you. And then, the big part of that is then once you do that and you just step through the door and just show up, like let that be enough for your first time. Just step through the door, show up, find whoever the coach is. Hey, I'm new here, first class. And then trust me, they're going to handle the rest. In my experience, I have not had a bad experience, and I've been fortunate to go all over, and do some cool CrossFit stuff. When I came into CrossFit Invictus, and what's his name, Fritz? Is that what?
Yep.
Okay, so I go up to him immediately, and even though a lot of people in there had seen my comedy at the time and kind of knew, I went straight up to him and I said, "Hey, man, I may not look it, but I'm new here. Like you're gonna have to walk me through this." And I asked for help.
Yeah.
We were doing some deadlifts that day, and I said, "Hey, am I doing this right?" Like have the courage to just speak up and say, "Hey, just let them know I'm new. I'm out of shape."
Real quickly, just to bookmark you, you're a high performing male. You're coming from the military where it's a testosterone driven, figure it out, don't ask for help. If asking for help has this association with weakness, why would I do such a thing? Like, how did you overcome that? And what would you share with other people? Because in my humble opinion, asking for help is actually more courageous and takes more bravery.
You said it, Bryce. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah. And it's like, it's tough though, right? Because it's like, you feel like asking your help is like showing your cards, right? Like I'm weak.
Yeah.
I can't do this. And you feel less than. But in reality, it's like every person needs a coach. Seeking to ask for help. I mean, Kobe asked for help from Hakeem Olajuwon, Michael Jordan, everybody in his pursuit of greatness. Like, how do we deconstruct that social narrative?
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's this thing associated with that, but it's like the best ask for help.
Yeah.
The mediocre don't. And then the bottom of the barrel are fearful to even partake.
Yeah. So, those are all great points. And I'm glad you're on the same page with me about that, because that is something that growing up, I was the opposite of. I lived my life in fear. That's what I found out too. A lot of people that you see are quick to be aggressive, quick to put you down, quick to, yell or scream or fight or whatever. They do that out of fear.
Yes.
Right? They do that out of fear. So for me, coming to that realization was all part of this journey. I was that way. Military dude, all this kind of stuff. I was always very quick to fight. Don't take advantage of me. Don't wrong me. If you do, I better, get you back. Otherwise, I'm weak. I'm all these things,
It's like a deconstruction of the ego.
Exactly. And so, but I learned that those reactions, right? I had this epiphany one day. Those reactions were actually easy for me. That was my first reaction. Natural. That's easy for me. Being quick to fight, I got to get this person back, whatever it is, that was easy for me. What was hard for me was giving that person a pass, or being forgiving, or being kind, even when someone's spitting in your face, or that's hard. Try that.
Yeah,
try that.
Tough.
Try when someone cuts you off in traffic, not to give them the finger. It's hard. So I learned that through doing that, well, that must be what strength looks like. That must be growth, right? Because of how hard it is to do. So I kind of started taking that aspect into all areas of my life, and I found that too. I was just like with the asking for help thing. That's huge. I ask. It is okay for me to admit to you what I can and can't do now. In the past, it wasn't. I could remember like when I'll reference going surfing with Dave. I've never done that. The old me would have acted like I've done it before, and I don't need your help. I'll get up on that board, and then I would have gone out in the ocean and got my ass kicked by the ocean and never even stood a chance. The me today can say, "Hey, tell me what to do. Yeah. I've never done this. Show me how to do it." And it's like you were saying, all the greats and that you name, Kobe, all these different people that are capable of that. Those are the ones that are successful because they can admit whenever they need help, and then they get help from someone who obviously is experienced at it.
Yeah, something that comes to mind here is this relationship between fighting and surrendering.
Yeah.
And I don't mean surrendering in a negative light, but just surrendering to the process. Surrendering that, like, hey, I spend a lot of time in this arena over here.
Yep.
I'm going to surrender to the expert because that's an arena where they actually spend more time. And if I can take on the role of a sponge and absorb, now it's only going to elevate me. It's going to elevate my relationship to this individual. It's going to empower them in a moment because that's something that they take tremendous pride in that I may not. And all of a sudden you acquire a new skill, which leads to enhancement of the human experience. And so for anybody watching, like, please surrender, ask for help, put yourself out there, be willing to embark on new experiences. And honestly, like, we talk about it often on this podcast, and that's just being a white belt sometimes, having a white belt mentality, like really trying to be okay with learning and keeping that childlike mindset, right? Like, children are always willing to play and surrender. And then somewhere along the line, as adults, we're like, oh, I don't want to do that because I don't want to look bad, right? And it's this cognitive perception of comparison and then feeling like you're going to be put down. And, you know, I think one of the biggest fears in the world is public speaking. Yeah. Right? And that's typically associated with, like, how am I going to be viewed? Do I misspeak? Am I going to say something wrong? And, like, I just think what's so cool is you're putting yourself out there, man. Yeah. That's some really cool stuff. Just to backtrack a little bit. What was your childhood kind of like? Where did you grow up? Do you have siblings? And what was your experience like with your parents?
Yeah, so I mean, very, very typical middle-class family, you know, growing up in Alabama, born in Montgomery, which is a little further south of Birmingham where I live now. But after being, you know, shortly after being born, I do have an older brother, so my mom was actually on birth control when she had me and my brother. Wow. So I was thinking, man, the birth control in the 80s must have been garbage because maybe she didn't, you know. So anyways, and my dad was working as basically a farm hand on our I've got an uncle that's got a lot of farmland in Montgomery, and he was working there and you know, in their early 20s and had 2 unexpected pregnancies back to back. And so my dad's like, well, I guess I better figure out how I'm going to make some money, some real money to, you know, build this family and take care of this family. And so we moved to Birmingham. He goes back to college, finishes college. And
that's honorable to go back to school. That's pretty cool.
And so, you know, moved to Birmingham and then kind of grew up there. And, you know, through high school and stuff, kind of I mean, not terrible upbringing or whatever, but my dad did struggle with addiction issues in when I was in high school, and my brother was actually on his way to college, and we get a phone call one day, and my dad has taken off to Central America, right? He's just gone. Oh, man. And had a bad, addiction with cocaine and I think some alcohol issues, and so I remember finding that out because I grew up in like a home where we would go to church and very Southern conservative type environment, and where, you know, we didn't have alcohol in the house, we didn't cuss, we went to church regularly, and then I'm finding out that, oh, that's a lie. You know, my dad's been doing this the whole time, and so I remember when I found that out in my mind, I was thinking, well, I'm going to do whatever I want to do now because this is all bullshit, you know. And I remember thinking that and feeling that. So my dad, you know, my brother was kind of at a place in college where he just wasn't speaking with him, and my mom was kind of the same way. She ended up divorcing him. Well, I was the only one that would kind of continue having a relationship with him. You know, I was a little bit closer with my dad than my brother was growing up. We were kind of interested in a lot of the same things, motorcycles, that kind of stuff. So I kind of felt like I was betraying him if I didn't answer his phone calls when he called and did all this stuff. And so he ends up coming back from Central America one day, and I was the only one that would remain in contact with him. And I would go see him and hang out with him, and he was staying in this hotel, and I mean, I was young, 17, about to turn 18, about to be a senior in high school. And one day I was like, I'm done with this. You know, he's not the same person. You know, he's got definitely still using drugs, definitely something going on. I didn't know much about drug addiction at that age. So I went home to my mom and I said, I'm not seeing him anymore. You know, we need to get him some help. I was like, we need to force him to get some help. Why aren't we getting him some help? I'm very big on, you know, and obviously there's a time and a place to separate yourself from somebody, right? I get that. But I'm very big on not leaving anyone behind, you know, at least, especially family, let's at least try something.
Dude, amen to that.
You know what I mean?
I'm like that too. Like, nobody left behind. Like, we have not exhausted every single opportunity.
What if you need help?
Totally.
Wouldn't you want this if this was you? That's what I remember thinking. So I came back mad one night, and she knew that. So part of when I would see him and answer his phone calls, it kind of took some pressure off my mom and brother. He would kind of leave them alone whenever I was at least engaging with him. So I said, I'm not doing it anymore, And we ended up contacting some family members and this and that, and one thing led to another. They basically had an intervention on him, and he was forced to go to rehab and went to a really nice rehab in Minnesota. And after that, he sobered up. He came back, remarried my mom, and things are great now.
Wow.
He has a great relationship with all of us.
Not only did he get a second chance, but she granted him a second chance. What? I mean, let's just look at the church, right? Like, I'm no expert in the Bible, but I definitely see tremendous value in certain elements of it. And what a great example of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right? What was that like when he came back and you were like, you know what? Like, first of all, huge kudos to you for sticking by his side, asking for help, not just for yourself, but for somebody else. I mean, that's a very heroic attribute and characteristic that you depicted in a moment of high stress. But then simultaneously seeing the outcome come out the way maybe you hoped it would. And I mean, we can always put forth our full effort, but we never know the outcome, right? And it's like you were able to experience a positive outcome. Your father comes back, remarries your mom. What happened next?
Yeah, so, that happened, and I don't take, like, any credit for that. I was just at a place, and I think I was definitely led by something. Something came over me because I didn't know what an intervention was. I just knew that he needed help, and no one was giving it to him, But so when he came back at first, I was I was angry. I was pissed off because
you probably didn't trust him at that moment.
Well, and there was a lot of things that were said that were hurtful, to me. Whenever I told other people where he was at, the hotel he was at and stuff, he was blowing my phone up that night, leaving voicemails, like, because he told me not to tell anyone, he just wanted to do his thing. He wasn't exactly asking for help, So he was like, you betrayed me, you blah, blah, saying all this stuff. And I don't, blame him for that now because he wasn't in the right mind. So when he came back and he had sobered up and he was this new person and I was expecting this big, hey, you saved my life, thank you. And I didn't get it. And so I held that against him for a long, long time. And then I went down my own little journey. And I remember kind of having this mindset like, well, I'm going to give him a little taste of what he did to us, and so that led to a lot of my, struggles with some opiate addiction and that kind of stuff. And, but, ultimately he stuck it out, he
words are one thing, but actions are another, right?
Actions are another. And I wasn't old enough or mature enough to see the difference in that now. He definitely, there's been a ton of healing that's taken place. He's, the relationship that him and my mom have now is like better than it's ever been. He's got a great relationship with my brother and his family and my brother's 4 kids. He's a grandparent now. So all these things. So there was definitely, and this was years ago too. I mean, I graduated high school in 2004, so you can see the amount of time it's been. But man, I don't give him enough credit, but I mean, the courage it takes to even, on his side to go through that and to want to come back and to want
to
just
think about the ego, right? Like,
yeah.
Man, my son is forcing me to rehab.
Yeah.
And trying to get, a group of people to help facilitate that. Like,
yeah.
I'm so frustrated by this. I don't want the world to see me in this light. I'm this strong male and I've got this family. I've got to provide. I've got to solve all the problems.
Right.
But it just goes to show, like, inevitably as humans, we all need help sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And let's also look back at probably the why, right? Like, why was he potentially using cocaine and opiates and alcohol? Well, when you look at that, it's probably fear-based.
Right.
And there's also probably love-based there, too. Like, I need to survive. I need to provide. I have so much pressure, so much stress. I need an altered state of consciousness. And I'm not saying it's the right choice. I'm just saying from an empathetic standpoint, I understand.
Yeah, it's definitely a choice, and I did the same thing, and I could remember, and I think there is for me, I do believe that there is some genetic makeup to that. His father struggled with some things, and you can see a genetic history, and it's almost like I can remember as a kid, me even as a young kid, I was always in my mind looking forward to the next thing that was going to make me happy. So whether it was, when do we get to go on vacation, or when do we get to do this, or when do we get to do, I could never really be just present, and whereas my brother, never any addiction issues, anything like that. So it's like, for me, whenever I started kind of discovering that substances could make me feel a certain way, and then you experience that one time, you're like, now you've set a new standard for it, like, well, now I got to feel like this every day,
Totally.
And for a long time, I didn't think that I could ever get that unless I was taking something, And I think even, the way prescription drugs are handled today can encourage that,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're depressed? Well, here, take this, this will make you not depressed, and then you start putting all your trust in this. I've got to have this pill or else I'm not going to be, and I understand there's some definite needs in some instances for some medication. I'm not a doctor, but in my own experience, I have found that my mental state, at least, is best when it's completely clear of substances. I can find that happiness and stuff in life now, which is a huge, huge blessing.
And through service of others, which you found.
Well, and that's how you get it, right?
Right. Service of others. Also discipline, like the fact that you're surrendering to the experience of exercising daily, which is not easy. It kicks all of our asses consistently.
Yeah.
I'm happy you brought that up around big pharma, right? Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
We're post-pandemic now. We are beyond excited to be working with Wizard Sciences for total brain and body optimization. This partnership came through personal experience with the benefits of their incredible product line and a deep human connection with their founder and former guest, Ion Mitchell. The Olympic RX supplement is created to enhance your overall training. When taking this, do not expect your body to feel different, but look for key indicators within workouts to see what this product can really do. I found increases in my strength and that I had an extra gear when working through tough cardio sessions. The Olympic contains beta-alanine, removes inflammation and oxidative stress at a mitochondrial level, increases muscle recruitment, and is full of carbon-60, which is considered the ultimate anti-aging and anti-inflammatory weapon available. Give Wizard Sciences a try and become as close to limitless as you can get. Use code Invictus Mindset for 15% off your order. Once again, that's Invictus Mindset for 15% off your order. There's all the controversy associated with the vaccines, and there's peaks and valleys associated with all of those things.
Right.
Something I talk about often is just like, you have preventative medicine over here. That's exercise, the 9 ancestral tenets, sunlight, grounding, positive connections and bonding with others, move frequently at a slow pace, sprint every now and then, pick up heavy things on occasion. And then over here, you have reactive medicine, which is, hey, you need to take this pill to help solve your problem. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, but I do think that like there needs to be like a closer proximity of the two, because magic is probably somewhere in the marrying of the two, or the intersection of the two. We all are probably going to need some sort of reactive medicine as we get older or when accidents happen. But it's unfortunate that like this stuff is all covered by health insurance. This stuff over here is not. You mentioned trying to create Fit to Serve over here, which is a free service contribution, low barrier to entry to introduce people to move, not a ton of equipment. And it's like, I wish this carried a little bit more weight. Right? This, in my opinion, is a little bit disrespected. The social construct or the narrative is like, hey, we don't monetize this. Right. And then as a byproduct, it's like people play in this field for a certain amount of time, but then it's like, oh, I'm having a family. I can't provide anymore. Like now I need to go to corporate America. I need to do all these things, which elicits more pressure, or modern day, a desk sedentary job that maybe carries with it a salary of some sort. Yeah. And then inevitably people make more money and they use their health to make the golden dollar. And then when they're 60, 70, 80 years old, they end up using the golden dollar to recalibrate their health.
Right.
And it's this cyclical cycle that inevitably gets real heavy, really fucking expensive. And I'm not saying it needs to be an either or conversation.
Right.
But one of my favorite questions on the planet is, why can't it be both?
Right.
Why can't we enhance the narrative around movement and love and connection and grounding and optimizing health, nutrition, and sleep of all things, right? Netflix's biggest adversary is sleep. That's a wild, that's a whole other conversation, right?
Right.
And it's like, if we can really enhance these very simple lifestyle adjustments and behavior changes, inevitably, reactive medicine is still there. They're still going to make money. They're still going to have tremendous value and purpose, but they can play ping pong with each other rather than it being an either or conversation. What are your thoughts on some of that?
No, that's good. I think for me, what I found was whenever I was struggling with some of these things that the world wants to medicate, it only fed into this mindset where there's a quick, easy solution for everything, right? People accredit America a lot with that concept, like we want the fast, quick, easy. You see these ads on TV, right? Like 6-minute abs. First it was like 7-minute abs, and then it was 6-minute abs.
Totally. Well played.
That ain't gonna happen.
That sells though, right? They're sexy words
because
that are
everybody
marketable.
wants. Yeah. You see that, and you're like, oh, 6-minute abs. I can have, but
Totally.
It's the same thing with medicine for me. I was always looking for, and not that, when I was younger, I struggled with OCD, real OCD. It always frustrates me when you hear people say, I'm so OCD, I just have to have everything perfect. I have to have everything clean. Like, that ain't OCD, okay? OCD, like when I was younger, I couldn't leave a room without flipping the light switch a number of times.
Oh, fuck.
Okay, so like, and the number.
That's a whole new level.
Okay, this is real OCD. And the number of times that I had to flip it's not like there was a set number of times. It was whenever my mind was satisfied with,
oh, wow.
that's, okay, you got to turn the lights off. You got to flip it. Okay, now we're good.
Wow.
So it wasn't, you
didn't have control of your mind. Your mind had control over you at that point.
Dude, it was exhausting. I remember, you can ask my brother, every night in bed, we slept in the same room for a while, two twin beds. I would have to apologize to him for all the mean things I did to him that day, and I would have to say it a certain way, even if I didn't do anything mean to him that day. I had these, they were like tics, when we're driving at night, or sometimes even the day, I would have to ask my dad if he had the headlights on. I would count the spokes on rims. Every time I saw car rims, I would count them over and over and over. It was exhausting, and I was struggling with this in my mind, and then I finally got old enough to where, maybe 10, 11, I knew that wasn't right, So I tell my mom, we go to the pediatrician, and he says, oh, he'll grow out of it, right? So I don't think they knew much about OCD then. This would have been mid-90s. He'll grow out of it. And I think for some kids, they do. I think every kid has these awkward little, not every kid, but some kids maybe have these awkward little things they do growing up, and then they get old enough and they don't need to do it anymore. Well, for me, it was as I got older, even into my adult years, like I wasn't flipping the light switch maybe anymore, but it was changing into so there was still a problem.
You saw it transferring into other arenas of life.
Exactly. And so I end up seeing a psychiatrist or psychologist, whichever one can prescribe medication. I think it's a psychiatrist. And they put me on something for this OCD thing, Well, that was in my mind something that I was hoping would fix a problem immediately, right? And by the way, I'm a big advocate on the OCD stuff. There was a kid that grew up in the same church that I grew up in as a younger kid family growing up. He was younger than me, but I still know his older siblings that ended up committing suicide I think in his 20s, and he was diagnosed with bad OCD. And I remember just that feeling of, and his sister's a big advocate for it now, because I can remember thinking in my head, like, it can get that bad where they see no way out. And I think there needs to be some more research done on that. For me, when I got into using drugs, I found that took away the OCD.
Oh, interesting.
Whether it was abusing opiates.
So you saw a reward. You were getting a return on investment.
Yeah, big time. Because when I was high or whatever, I didn't care. So anyways, just long story short, I did end up getting to a place where I just didn't do it anymore. I knew how to control them. The world's not going to end if I don't do this kind of thing. So I think ultimately that pediatrician must have been right. I eventually did grow out of it just a lot later than I wanted to. But to answer your question initially, it's like it gave me this mindset that, okay, if I have a problem, there's got to be an immediate solution. I've got to take this pill for it. I got to take this for it. And that just didn't last for me. What that led to for me was, and eventually that medication it didn't work. It led to me to abusing other medications when that stopped working because I kept looking for this quick fix quickly. But when you really get down to it, growth for me happens in that hard work. I really experienced that in the military, like how good you feel after a workout, and then like you said, discipline, getting into that lifestyle. So I think obviously the reason that there's not as much weight held into the health, healthy lifestyle over medication type of things is because the money that's involved, and health insurance and all that.
And the time, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, maybe we'll get there as a society one day, but I don't know that it's going to be the government that does it. I think people have to experience that themselves.
I was literally just about to say that. I love that you said that. It needs to be an experience and less about just the narrative. Mm-hmm. It's not something that can be explained through science. It needs to be felt within the heart, the soul, and the mind.
Right.
And I think exercise absolutely does that. And to quote the famous and good-looking Matthew McConaughey, most good things come on the other side of putting in a little sweat.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
And when I think about, your journey so far, man, you've overcome so many different obstacles. And you've entered some pretty cool arenas too, like pickleball.
Yeah.
How did you find pickleball, man? And how's that become like a big part of your journey? I know you played with our good friend Danny Spiegel. You guys had some fun out there. What was that journey like?
Yeah. So pickleball, and I'm due a rematch with Danny because I definitely got my ass kicked. But and I'm confident enough now in my life I can admit that, right? Mm-hmm. Some friends were playing it and introduced me to it, and I played it a couple times and fell in love with it. It's one of those sports that really, seriously, if you play it, it's maybe not like that for everybody, but if you play it, you're probably going to like it. And then, it was helping me be active and doing all these things. And, but when I started doing my comedy videos and I started making, some pickleball related humor, your friend that just started playing pickleball, I had some companies start reaching out to me about those videos, and that became part of when I started doing content full time and getting paid to do it. Pickleball was a big supporter of that. So that led me into playing even more pickleball because now I got to make these videos and now I've got a paddle sponsor and now I've got these other and so it just was something I kind of came into, started playing it, started making videos about it. Now it's kind of like a job, part of my content creation job.
Has it changed at all? Right? Like in the beginning when it's a hobby and there's so much childlike curiosity and you're just tinkering with the craft. It's like, hey, I'm just doing this thing because it feels fun, exciting, and exhilarating. Has it changed since it's become a job?
Yeah, big time. I like to get... There are very rare moments now where I go to a pickleball court and I'm not shooting a video, So for me, it's nice to get those little opportunities where you do get to just put the camera down and just play with your friends, introduce you to somebody new, get to go out. So I do have those moments still where I get to go and play. I need to be better, be more specific about doing it, on purpose. Like, hey, I'm going out here to play, not shoot anything. But because I do make a lot of content for pickleball stuff, it definitely feels like a job, and then it is a job. But it's kind of like, getting, if you're an accountant, right, and you get paid to be an accountant, you don't want to do accounting work, in your free time. That might be a bad example because maybe no one wants to do accounting work as a hobby, but, maybe that way for a bass pro fisherman or whatever,
Totally.
So it has gotten that way, but I do still enjoy it so much, and just all the people I've been able to meet through playing pickleball, and it's changing the world, bro. I'm telling you.
It is, and it's additional movement. And you know what's also really cool about it is like people of all ages can play it.
Right.
Right? It doesn't beat the crap out of your body. It's fun. There's banter. There's shit talking.
Yeah.
There's definitely a score at the end of the game.
Yeah.
But the big takeaway here is just, inevitably, everybody in the world has stress, right? Sometimes the perception of the outside world to content creators or people that create or post things to social media is like, oh, it must be nice.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Cameron Haynes alludes to that pretty often, where it's like, that's a really terrible mindset to have.
Yeah.
Because everything's hard for everybody in some capacity.
Right.
And you have this unique skill to have such a positive attitude, but bro, you're always on, right? Like the expectation to be, fit to serve.
Right.
As opposed to like, hey, let your shoulders down. Just be Evan Slaughter.
Yeah.
Right. And like, I've definitely felt that in my journey sometimes where it's like, hey, like, I don't want to be the fitness guy right now. I don't want to be the podcast guy right now. I just want to be Bryce.
Right.
And, I think a lot of people can absolutely relate to that. And, very fortunately, both of us get to experience and share authentic versions of ourselves on very, special capacities, doing things that we love. And, I do think it was important to kind of make note of that.
Yeah.
That all of us, not just myself and yourself, but also professional athletes, all these people, you know what they are first? They're humans.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so whatever journey we go on, incorporating the element of the human first.
Yeah.
And we talk about that a lot at Invictus. It's like you can write a sexy program. You can have amazing merch. You can have amazing products. But at the end of the day, it's like, did you take the time to connect with the individual?
Yeah.
And that's not always easy. Sometimes life circumstance makes that really hard, but that's what actually really gravitated me towards you was the fact that like you were at Invictus to do a workout, to do some content creation, to do some stuff with some amazing brands and companies, but you took the time to kind of spitball with me in between some of those things. And I got to see authentic you.
Yeah.
That was like, you're organically funny, but I felt an energy there that like you actually care about making a fucking difference in the world.
Right.
And it's like, dude, that is amazing. And if you take that line, that's the only line you guys hear, this man's trying to make a difference. And if we can all take that as our best foot forward, this thing outside of these walls, that world gets a little bit better.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Like that human component it supersedes it all, man.
Right.
I heard a unique story from the famous scientist Peter Attia. And it's a little bit of a sad story, so I apologize in advance. But he had this really wealthy venture capital friend. And his wife was getting ready to give birth. And so he took her to the hospital, and they were running a series of tests, got her in the room. And he said, okay, like, where am I needed? How can I best support? And they're like, oh, we're just going to run a few tests. No big deal. How about you step out for a little bit, come back in like an hour or so. He walks down the street, grabs a banana and a coffee. And as he's walking back, he's just kind of talking to himself. And he's like, I wonder if I'm going to keep being this, high-performing businessman that's going to be a venture capitalist, or if I'm just going to kind of lean into being full family all the time. And he's like dancing back and forth, this versus that. What are the thoughts? Who's going to think this? Who's going to think that? How's it going to affect the monetization of my career? And he gets back to the hospital. He walks upstairs. In the time that he was gone, the baby was born, and his wife had passed away from a pulmonary embolism. And I heard the story, and I was jaw-dropped. And then Peter Attia said that he spoke to his buddy who's a venture capitalist, and he said, in that moment I realized that everything else is bullshit. The human component, the connection, the love, the growth through adversity, all of those things are the things that hold tremendous value and supersede it all.
Yeah.
And, when we remove the comedy, we remove some of these other things that have flair, right? At the core, you're a good human. And that's what I felt when we crossed paths for the first time. And it's like your thoughts around bringing positivity through laughter, it's more than that. Like what you're doing has roots. It's below the surface that doesn't quite meet the eye, but you can feel it when we're around you. And that's what I think is really creating this vibrational frequency. I call it kind of like a ripple effect, right? Like you take a pebble, you throw it in the water, and it has this ripple effect and how it positively impacts everybody around you. That's why your phone keeps ringing, bro. That's why everybody wants to work with you, and that's why you're doing some really cool things. You've actually done the deep work through your adversity, through your loving connections with others, where people can feel that frequency in the craft and the people that you cross paths with. And you should be proud of that, man. It's cool stuff.
That's the way that you said that was really, really good. I'm glad that I got to take that in, because I've heard people say similar things, but not as well. And I appreciate you for saying that. That's a good reminder to me to have a purpose, to continue to make sure that I don't lose sight of the that's always been my reminder. Continue to make sure that you don't lose sight of the purpose, the ultimate purpose of what I think I'm doing with the audience and everything is like, laughter. If that's all you get out of it, that's still good in my book. At least you're getting some laughs. I get so many messages, like I was having a bad day and watched one of your videos, and I was able to laugh through some things, and I definitely had to laugh my way through some things and in life, and that's one of the way that I've dealt with some of the things we talked about, some stuff from the military, some stuff with, my family growing up, all these different things. I was the one that would laugh maybe in times that were inappropriate to laugh, but I used that as a way to get through. But at the same time, to make sure that I am remaining authentic and I am really trying to push a positive message is a big part of why I am doing what I'm doing. Because I think the world needs more of it, and I needed it. I needed it big time in my life, and I'd gotten to a place in my life where I was just very unhappy. I'd gone through a divorce after getting out of the military, all these different things, and through that journey of all these different hurts and areas to grow in, and the addiction stuff and all this kind of stuff, and then to land here, I think it impacts my message. It helps impact my message more because it's got real meaning behind it, and my hope is that, hey, you hear something positive that maybe helps you avoid some of these pitfalls that I suffered myself, because you don't have to go through that, to be living a healthy, happy life. It doesn't mean that you don't have to go through these negative things in order to grow and learn from that. Like, you can skip that too,
totally.
And I think that's what, a big part of what your podcast is helping people do,
totally. I think one of the greatest business models too is just like, you're solving a problem, right? But also you're giving to others what you also need. And so it's like using yourself as a guinea pig of like, man, like what advice or what tool could I have used at that moment in time when I was going through the thick of it? Yeah. And having laughter, knowing that somebody's there, having somebody that can co-pilot your health and fitness journey. And as I mentioned before, grant the permission to be like, hey, take that step, go into that health and fitness location close to your house, ask for help, let them know what's going on, and allow them to serve you in your fitness journey. And before you know it, you build momentum. And we all know physics 101, objects in motion stay in motion, objects at rest stay at rest. And I think you're living that, man. Like, going back to some of your military experience, how did you find the military? And before you answer that question, what does the military mean to you?
The military, you don't find the military finds you.
Ooh, there you go. Write that one down, ladies and gentlemen.
You got to hear the call. It sounds like a bald eagle, and you hear it, and then you respond to it. No, I always had interest in the military. Had a couple family members, both grandparents served. Of course, like we were discussing earlier, it was a different time, I think, when they served. I know one of them maybe was part of the draft, but I was young, had done 3 years of college, moved back home, was working at a gym, personal training, doing different things, in really good shape, and it just came over me one day that I wanted. I think part of it too was I always liked having security growing up.
I think most people do, right? The big three: fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Exactly.
When you have security, it's like, hey, I have a hub. If all else fails, I got this thing, this stake in the ground.
Yeah, here's a career path. I didn't finish college, personal training could be up and down, and so I just thought, well, maybe this will be a good thing, and if I do decide to finish college, I can use some money that I get from this to do so. That was kind of the excuse in my head. But also, I just kind of wanted to do it. You know what I mean? I knew I wanted to be in the infantry. I'll tell you a funny story about that. I had no idea about joining the military. I hadn't talked to anyone about it. I did have some friends that served, but I just never, going back to that I don't need help mindset, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't ask anybody any suggestions about this. I just went, right? Mm-hmm. And in my mind, I think what I was thinking was you sign up for the military and then the next day you're on the bus and you're out of here.
Yep.
That's not how it works.
It's kind of the narrative that's portrayed on movies, though, a little bit.
It doesn't work that way. So I went to the Marine Corps first, and hell, they had to get me approved to even be accepted. I was like, what? I'm doing you a favor. Like, I walked in all honorable, like I'm here to serve my country. Big chest. Take me in, It's like, well, we got to do a background check and some other stuff, and you have some tattoos that stick below your short sleeve shirt. That at the time, and the guy that's like signing me up had sleeve tattoos, like tattoos on his neck, and I was like, what's up with the tattoo policy? Because I barely had any, I had something on my wrist, and so at the, it just changes. At the time, the Marine Corps, any tattoos that showed outside of a PT uniform, which if you know the Marine Corps PT uniform, they wear those silkies, those, we call them Ranger panties in the Army, but really short shorts.
Yep.
Small T-shirt. And so they had to take pictures of me in a PT uniform. I had to get some people to write some references, do a bunch of legwork. I did all the legwork and then found out that I wouldn't be leaving for boot camp for another 9 months. And I was thinking in my mind, like, well, hell, I don't know if I want to be in the military in 9 months.
Yeah.
I might change my mind. We need to get on a bus today if we're doing this. I feel like joining today, not 9 months from now. So that, it was, and so then I was like, well, all right, whatever. I'll get back to you, And then I go talk to the Air Force and was looking at the pararescue thing. And then right next door was an Army deal, and the Air Force had a delayed entry program too at the time. The Army was like, you can leave in 3 months. It's like, let's do it. Sign me up. Took the ASVAB, knew I wanted to be in the infantry, and then a few months later I was on a bus to Fort Benning, Georgia.
Wow. How did that kind of spin your wheels ideologically, where it was like you were in school, you were personal training, and they were like, you know what, I'm going to flip the script a little bit, because from my understanding, you were personal training and you were in school for exercise science, but then you realized like, oh, you don't actually need like to have this full-fledged degree. You can make some money and serve people. And then you were like, you know what? I don't really want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
What was going on in between your ears when you made that switch?
This episode is brought to you by Mush. My friends over at Mush created an incredibly cool product of ready-to-eat overnight oats. And for those of you that listen to the podcast often, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And Mush has done just that, as their products have no more than 7 clean ingredients that are dairy-free, gluten-free, with no added sugar. Mush started right here at Invictus, as they had a vision to create convenient, healthy, and clean nutrition. And this landed them on Shark Tank, where the famous Mark Cuban invested in them. Now they're found in retailers all over the country, including Costco, Sprouts, Target, and Whole Foods. Check out my friends over at www.eatmush.com.
I had, at that time, that was part of the time when I was really started struggling with some opiate stuff. I'd partying with some guys. So you
actually found opiates before the military?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting, because most people would find it afterwards, right?
Yeah, and I got back to it after that, and after being injured in Afghanistan and them prescribing them to me. But before that, going back to that party mindset from all the stuff I went through with my dad, I was just living kind of reckless, and had gotten into doing some opiates with some guys that I'd gone to high school with. And so anyways, I was like, I need a change, I need a change. And the military was going to facilitate that as well in my mind. So anyway, this is just part of my time right there to start over. I was still in good shape. I was doing fine then, and joined and thought that would be a solution to a lot of things. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Job security, more money for college if I needed it, and just a change of environment.
Totally. And also some structure.
Yeah.
Right. Some structure, some discipline, and, some things that can help. You knew you had the work ethic. Inevitably, it was kind of like, hey, I need some steps to follow, or maybe a little bit of a roadmap to help get you to your destination. Once you got into the military, what was training like, and what was your experience like, and how you grew as a man in that experience?
I thrived in that environment. I think I was old enough to know, not to be one of the jackasses that would talk back to a drill sergeant. Like you see a lot of younger kids, 18, 19, fresh out of high school, that still have this attitude about them,
Full of piss and vinegar, man.
That's right. And so I was in good shape, like I mentioned. I was working hard. They liked me. Drill sergeants liked me, all that kind of good stuff. So training was fun. I enjoyed it, honestly.
And you have a tremendous work ethic to be able to sustain some tremendous beatdowns and long rucks and things that definitely will eat up your soul a little bit, and obviously beat you up with regards to impact on the body. You mentioned to me previously a little bit of your feet getting beat up, your knees, your hips, your back. Like, how did you overcome some of the challenges of your body getting beat up a little bit?
It wears you out. I was a tough guy. I mean, I really was. I've been, not tall, been short my whole life. Always kind of had to fight to, I was big into weightlifting. I was always trying to overcompensate for that. Mm-hmm. But had a tough mentality. I'd been through some stuff, prior to this, like just the stuff with my family and growing up, and I wasn't no punk, you know what I mean? Like I was pretty hardcore then, dude. I was a tough guy, Mm-hmm. And I didn't like to, if something was affecting me, I wasn't going to tell you about it, I actually I think I liked, like I was telling you about some of the rucks, the pain that you're feeling during that time, what it's doing to your feet. Guys were literally duct taping their feet, which by the way is a terrible thing, because it just makes it worse. Like the duct tape gets wet, dude, and it's just
the thought process of like when things are moving too much and you don't want them to move, use duct tape.
And then your feet start sweating so bad that now the duct tape's moving, and now it's ripping the skin off the bottom of your foot. Even worse, dude.
And then when things aren't moving and you want them to move, WD-40.
But it was like, yeah. But it was like a thing of pride, It's like when you got done and you made it, and seeing other people drop out and not make it, and you're one of the ones making it. I thrived off that. I was a competitive, athletic guy, coming up. So at that time in life, and at my age and at the amount of shape I was in, I really actually enjoyed it. Being away from home didn't bother me. None of that stuff. I was in it.
Did any experiences really like stand out to you with regards to rucking and maybe some of the bonds that you made in the military? What were some of the stories that stood out to you about your relationships and your connections? I mean, you mentioned obviously at that time in life, you were a tough guy. You were not willing to compromise, anything. You were going to push forth no matter what the challenge is. What were some of the things that stood out to you around, navigating the toughness around all the heavy rucks, as you mentioned, funny, duct taping your feet, and some of the things to manage blisters and the challenges with your body at that time?
Yeah, there was this guy when we were rucking. He joined our infantry company late. He got recycled. His name was Nguyen. He was Vietnamese, I think, and he joined the military. Couldn't speak a lick of English when he joined. He was like full-blooded Vietnamese.
Wow,
came
so
over
communication's tough.
Joins the army, right? He's like, I'm not tall. He's smaller than I am. And he broke his foot or something in his first basic class, and was in like the infirmary for, months upon months before he could heal up and recycle, right?
Oh, man.
So while he's in the, medical area healing and trying to get recycled, he's learning English, but he's learning English from a bunch of people in the military. So like every other word was the F word.
Yeah, I was going to say, everybody's teaching him the bad words first.
He would use the F word in ways that it wasn't intended to be used. And we would have to tell him, like, Nguyen, that doesn't even make sense to say the F word right there. It was so funny. But he was, rucking was tough for Nguyen. the pack was about as big as he was. And so, going up a hill or cruising along, he would just come up behind you and kind of grab onto your rucksack.
So you can carry him.
and kind of try to let you help him along the way. And
Yeah.
by the time, everybody loved him and you couldn't not like him. But by the time everybody, we're going up this one hill, you're moving along, everybody's pissed and like humping it out, and then you feel a little in the wind, grab it onto your rucksack and guys would go, "Wind, get off!" They're slapping his hand away, So it was just, we talked about laughing through a lot of situations. That was it for me. It's like, we would, the camaraderie you built with these guys going through this, you're forming this brotherhood. You're all out there sucking together. You know what I mean? Like everything, you're going through this terrible, or these hardships together. And then when you reach that destination, you're grouped up. It's like you kind of against the drill sergeants type mindset, and I just loved that. I loved the teamwork behind it.
I almost feel like that's partially by design, right? Like they want to be the common enemy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
I definitely think there's a part of that stands out for sure. When you look at that experience, do you think that helped facilitate like laughter through adversity?
Oh, big time. Yeah, big time. And I was always, the one that could bring some comedic relief in those environments too. Like I was just that guy my whole life, and I did it there as well. And like I mentioned before, people liked me for that. The drill sergeants kind of liked me because of that. They knew I was funny. They heard some of the stuff I would say. They would find guys to pick on and that kind of stuff. And you would laugh through some things with them too. But that was definitely a way to, take those moments, we call it in the suck. When you're in the suck and it's, you're out there in the middle of the woods going through these field exercises, it's raining, it's muddy, it's blah, blah, blah. You're going to find something to laugh about. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
And that just kind of helps you over the hump, and inevitably to help you go over, under, around the challenge that's in front of you. And then also to come together.
Yeah.
Right. You realize in those moments in time, you got to be reliant on each other. And that's cool that they could rely on you for a little bit of comedy.
Yeah. Well, and it created this space too, where it's like, you didn't want to be the guy that didn't make it, like I remember thinking that too. It's like, I didn't want to be the guy that was last. I didn't want to be the guy that had to get on the truck, that couldn't make the ruck. I didn't want to be the guy that, wasn't fitting in because he wasn't cooperating with the other team, So it created this environment where you wanted to thrive because of the guys that you were with, you know. You wanted to kind of, when you couldn't do it for yourself, you could maybe do it for them.
Yeah. There's so much power in that, man. I mean, you look at the community within CrossFit.
Right.
You look at the teams within CrossFit and suffering on the worm and whatnot. It's like, you might not be able to do it for you, but you can do it for your team.
Yeah, do it for your team.
And that just elevates the arena a little bit, right? Like a rising boat lifts all tides.
Yeah.
Right. Or a rising tide lifts all boats, rather.
Yeah.
To speak it appropriately.
I used to say, you might not respect yourself enough to do it for you, but at least respect me enough to not fall out of this, ruck or what,
Yeah.
That's kind of what we would say.
I
think that's why a lot of people, the military environment kind of can coincide with CrossFit too. I think, you get a lot of vets participating in that because of that. Mm-hmm. Like people that started Go Ruck, vets, all these different things. And then you got people that weren't in the military doing Go Ruck, and it's like you're all learning about this camaraderie and the strength behind that together.
Totally, man. I did the very first Go Ruck, as I mentioned to you previously. That was tough, man. Yeah. I think there was 27 people that enrolled in my class, and I think it started like 11:30 in the evening of us bear crawling in the sand and them throwing sand at us, and just different challenges. I just remember sitting. And we did, everybody was linked up and the waves are just crashing on us. And every so often they had us scoot forward.
Yeah.
And, we're just hitting the surf, I guess, as they would say. And there was some really cool bonds formed in that moment. Mm-hmm. Lighter people were getting carried by, the different tides, and we're pulling them back in. And we ended up having to carry a telephone pole like 6 or 7 miles.
Yeah.
And everybody's carrying it differently. It's smashing ears. Some people are holding it like a goblet. Some people are underneath it and it's on their shoulder. And, we talked about rucking and the impact that it has on your body. It's like through doing hard things, it's really tough.
Yeah.
If I had to do that by myself, I would have quit 17 times. Mm-hmm. But because it was for people that I loved and cared about, I was like, man, I can endure this a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to go a little bit further just to try to ensure that person knows that I got their back.
Yeah.
And think about that line right there. I'm going to go a little bit further knowing that, or trying to remind that person that they know that I've got their back. what if we all did that in life, man?
Yeah.
Right? There's a special uniqueness to that can elevate the room a little bit, which is really powerful. Were there mantras that you kind of repeated to yourself that were strong, that kind of helped you through some of the darker times in the military at all?
None that can really come to my mind immediately. A big part of it for me was the leadership, and that's not just in basic and infantry school. You had the drill sergeants to help motivate you in those environments. If you're like me and you did some things for fear of getting in trouble, or you didn't want to be yelled at, or so you complete the task for that. That's the motivation. Then drill sergeant basic training environment's perfect for you. But when you're out of that environment and you're in a regular unit, what the motivation kind of changes there. A lot of it for me, especially in deployment, were the guys that, outranked you, the sergeants that were above you, that had been down that road before, that were complete badasses, that had been deployed before, that, had Ranger tabs and been through these things, and it was like that was kind of the motivation for me to kind of keep going. That was the mantra, if you will. You had them kind of providing that for you, so that was big for me, the leadership.
That's huge. What kind of happened when you got out of the military? You mentioned you kind of revisited opiates a little bit, and then you ended up going through a divorce.
Yeah. So, while I was in Afghanistan, we deployed one year to Afghanistan. I ended up hitting an IED, and actually there were two IEDs. The lead truck of the first convoy hit an IED, and it actually killed one of our guys. And then we had just kind of gotten into country. We're, new or going through this all together, and I was in the lead truck of the second convoy that was going to come up to assist with what just happened. And there was a secondary IED planted, so we hit that one. And it messed my ankle up. I had a dislocated tendon in my ankle and some other bumps and bruises, but ultimately I was okay. I was able to stay. I chose to stay in country and finish the deployment. I had to do some driving for a little while. I had like one of those medical boots on, and I would just drive and not have to, not get out of the truck when we went on a mission. And then ultimately, I worked my way out of the boot, and it was kind of like just a bad sprain is what it felt like. And I kind of overcame that pretty well. But
you made yourself useful.
Yeah. And I wasn't leaving, I wanted to be there. I really actually kind of enjoyed deployment. It goes back to all that, I was on a team with some really close guys. Like I wasn't leaving. So, but because of that injury, they prescribed to me opiates, and in my mind, I could have said, hey, I historically have a bad relationship with this. Is there some Motrin we can do instead? Is there some ibuprofen we can take instead? But in my mind, and the way I'm thinking is, well, this is legitimate. This is justified. Like, I need this medication, So start back down that road, except I'm doing it legitimately. I'm getting these prescription pills, and so by the time I end up getting out of the military, I get out and I'm still on these prescription opiates. Well, when you get out and you lose your health insurance and you're headed back home and you've got some time, if you're going to do the VA thing and register with the VA, there's a big time gap there. It takes a while. Yeah. So I started going to the doctor and getting the pills that I thought I needed, and it just one thing led to another, and now I'm addicted to opiates again, and it took me down a bad road. I was not the same person, all the lying, all the different stuff through that, get into a relationship, end up getting married, lying to her the whole time, about being on opiates and trying to get off opiates. And, if I could have been honest, it goes back to that honesty thing. If I could have just done that, it probably would have saved that marriage and maybe, helped me through the process a lot more. But go through the divorce, I start losing things because of it. And I get to a place where I talk to some friends some good friends I had in my life, and they kind of approached me about it, like, hey, man, you need to get some help getting off this stuff because you're not going to be able to do it on your own. So I ended up going to a treatment center, and it was like a 3-month deal. And it was 3 months seemed like a lot at the time, but it was definitely something I needed. And I was able to, it was the right amount of time to not only get off of prescription medication stuff, or opiates or whatever. It was also a good time for me to just reset, figure things out.
And at that point, were you out of the military?
Yeah.
Okay.
Been out of the military, and after I'd gotten out of the military, I kind of went back and forth with the opiate thing, for a little while. Had some good jobs, did some good jobs, got into multifamily real estate through a friend for a little while, but yeah, ended up going to the treatment center years later and met even some more people in my life that continue to speak into my life today and provide some guidance for me, and I learned how to get real, and I learned how to be honest, and I learned how to stop being afraid of all these fears that I was living in, and people pointed that out to me, that I was living in fear, and that a lot of things were based in fear. And so it was just like a huge pivotal moment in my life where it led me to where I'm at today. It was the foundation for me to become what I'm doing now.
Yeah. And you had to go through it, right? That helped sharpen the sword, but simultaneously is painful. Right?
Yeah.
When you look at our equator as humans, there's stories above the equator that we're like, okay, I'd probably go through that again. They're a relatively positive experience that helps shape who we are. And then below the equator are probably experiences that are like, yes, these things were necessary to help shape who I am, but I never want to go through these again.
Yeah.
Right? And, you're definitely, as we've described previously, we're all a bundle of stories, right? Both good and bad and everything in between. And inevitably the makeup of that story is what makes us us.
Yeah.
And we talked a little offline around this concept of the human experiment, right? And we're blades of grass.
Blades of grass.
We touch on
Just
that a
be
little
a
bit?
blade of grass. Be a blade of grass. That's where Tom, I refer to him as my spiritual advisor, guider of all things spiritual for me.
I like that. That's good stuff.
He's awesome. And that's one thing I kind of preach too, is like, find someone, if you don't have somebody in your life that's older than you, significantly, maybe not significantly, but old enough, maybe 10 or more years older than you.
Been around the block a few more times.
Been around the block a few more times, find somebody that you look up to and that is maybe living a life that you see as like, okay, that's a real, genuine, healthy, this person's a healthy individual. They've probably been through some things. I'm going to figure out how they do what they do, and first of all, they need to be willing to be that person in your life. But second off, you need to be willing to ask that person and then take their advice, and I had messed things up in my own life. And maybe your parents are that for you, for some people. For me, it just wasn't that, My relationship with my dad and mom has definitely gotten way better, but I just am not at a place where that person could be my dad right now. There's definitely things he helps me with that I go to him about, and that's getting better and better. But for me, I needed someone that I wasn't related to. Yeah. Because sometimes when your parents tell you something, you're just like, whatever. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But for me, with this guy, it's like he can tell me things, and for some reason I do it, and I listen to it.
And it's an unbiased opinion, right?
Unbiased opinion. That's right.
That third person bird's eye view perspective that can kind of lay it to you straight and be like, hey, you're doing this really well. This over here is really messed up, and we need to make those changes. And if you don't believe me, fine, make the mistakes, but then you're going to suffer the consequences. Yeah. And then we can have that conversation too.
Yeah, and they care enough about you. They love you enough to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And
the truth hurts sometimes.
The truth
man.
hurts, and my mom, she loves me, but I think sometimes, and she, everybody's parents, they're not parents until they have kids, so they're kind of learning through that process too. She probably held some things from me growing up because she thought she loved me enough to where she didn't want to expose me to that pain.
Totally. What a protective instinct.
Yeah. And so when I say find somebody that loves you enough to tell you the truth, then, Tom, for me, he's not going to bullshit me.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's not looking for anything in return.
He's not looking for anything in return. It was funny how we came to this relationship we have. I didn't know this about him, but he's got a son named Evan.
Ironically,
and here I am coming to him to help guide me as well in some areas, so it was funny,
awesome.
A lot of things fit. And I try to call him regularly, and especially as this stuff continues to grow for me, it's real easy for me in the past historically to become egotistical. You know, it's easy for me to slip back into that manipulation and that dishonesty, or to puff myself up and go, well, look what I've done. You know, I got a video out there with 14 million views. You know, look how awesome I am. You know, it's easy, and to have someone that can kind of ground you and remind you of those things, like the blade of grass analogy. Tom always tells me, just be a blade of grass. And what he means by that is, if you look at a lawn and there's millions of blades of grass out there, we're all just a blade of grass on this earth. So just be another blade of grass. You know, you're not better than anybody else just because of what you do or how much money you have or what you know. Just be another blade of grass.
Yeah, there's tremendous humility in that, and I think tremendous value. I'm going to say a few things, and what I want you to do in return is kind of give me just like a one or two lines that come to mind, maybe the elevator pitch. And I think these lines will have tremendous meaning for you. Okay. Take it one step at a time.
Yeah, for me, that is why I have today in sign language tattooed on the back of my arm. It's a reminder that you know, live today. And not even live today, live in the moment. I'm present in this moment. When I do that, I can experience life.
Be where your feet are.
Is that the next one?
No, that's just me echoing kind of what you're saying, which I really appreciate. The next one's going to be, it'll require trial and error.
Ooh, story of my life. And story behind the comedy videos, you know. Not all of it was going to work the first time. I learned through the failures. So learn through the failures, because they're going to happen.
That's great. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Ooh. These are all so good. I grow whenever I'm uncomfortable. It's easy for me to isolate and to not step out. But whenever I force myself to be in those uncomfortable situations, and I'm talking about healthy uncomfortable situations, if it's uncomfortable for someone to be on a podcast, but you're invited to be on a podcast, try it. Yeah. You know, because you're probably going to grow from it and learn from it. So uncomfortable is where you grow.
This is my favorite one. I'll give you a little longer than an elevator pitch if you want on this one. Okay. We touched on it a little bit briefly, but remember that fitness has a lot of meanings, right? It's not just about the six-pack abs.
Yeah. Fitness, you know, what is the reason behind your fitness was big for me. If the reason behind your fitness is six-pack abs, is that going to last for you? Are you happy with that as the end result? For me, fitness means being able to increase longevity in life and to actually be in a position to experience life when life happens. You know, and you have these opportunities to surf in the Pacific, and you have these opportunities to go on the hike, or you get invited to go do this really cool thing. We talked about getting some four-wheelers and just going, you know, that takes a level of fitness. So have the fitness so that you're prepared to experience life. That's been my personal, goal,
that. I love that. Have the fitness so you can experience life. Where can people find you, man?
Right now we're at your house, I think. So do we want to give that address out? Or? I'm just kidding.
I love that, man.
Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube are my platforms, trying to grow the YouTube deal. So, Fit to Serve is kind of what I go by. It's Fit to Serve 1 on Instagram because somebody's got my handle.
We got to get that
which
one.
We're going to get handled.
Yeah, we're going to get that. Dude, as I mentioned to you previously, we've got some cool merch that definitely gave me a little chuckle. As much rest as possible.
Yeah.
Grease the grundle.
Yeah.
Help explain to people, what is the grundle?
So the grundle is the region between, you want to come in close on that, Louie? The grundle, we'll call it the undercarriage.
Okay.
For those listeners.
Also known as the gooch, right?
The gooch, yeah. The gooch or taint area.
Okay.
And actually, what's funny, I was at the dentist office not long ago, and I was laying there, and I'm sitting, and they got a TV thing up here, right?
Yeah.
And the dentist is starting to kind of work on me, and there's an advertisement for a new medication coming out, and one of the side effects, right, is that it would cause itching and chafing or something in and they gave a medical term for it. There's another term for that space, and I need to think of the name of it. And it even defined it, and it said, and I'm looking up here because I see the TV screen, the blah, 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 whatever they called it, is the space between the genitals and the anus. And I'm sitting there dying laughing.
Dude, that is fantastic. That is so good. Down with the thickness.
Perineum. That was the term.
Say it again.
Perineum.
Perineum.
And we can add that to
you can make a shirt
list,
out of that.
The list of words for grundle.
I
perineum.
love
That's the medical. And it said the perineum is the space between your anus and genitals.
There you have it, guys. The Grundle Greasers running squad. Me and Evan have been getting after it, having fun. Thank you so much for joining us as we can unpack the incredible story of Evan Slaughter as he's on a journey, man, bringing positivity and laughter to people's lives through fitness. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed my conversation with Evan Slaughter, head to Instagram, hit that follow button on Fit to Serve. And if you enjoyed this today, guys, hit subscribe on our Invictus Mindset podcast. We love being able to serve you, share incredible stories from some of the world's highest performers. And as always, guys, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Till next time. Bye-bye. We are beyond excited to be working with Wizard Sciences for total brain and body optimization. This partnership came through personal experience with the benefits of their incredible product line and a deep human connection with their founder and former guest, Ion Mitchell. Wizard Sciences isn't just for humans. They also have a canine formula to help our four-legged friends recover from long hikes, grueling fetch sessions, and keep your pups doing all the things that they love. Give Wizard Sciences a try and become as close to limitless as you can get. Use code Invictus Mindset for 15% off your order. Once again, that's Invictus Mindset for 15% off your order.
Are you over 35 and in need of a solid training program? Are you looking to improve your athleticism and keep up with the younger athletes in your CrossFit gym? Then look no further than our Invictus Masters program. This program places year-round emphasis on mobility and stability exercises with movements that we have seen directly benefit our Masters athletes. Our program is led by Nicole DeHart and offers a training program designed specifically for Masters athletes who are looking to compete at a higher level in the sport of CrossFit. Some of our top Masters athletes in the world train with us, including CrossFit Games champion Kevin Kester, Matt Beals, and Pat Sprague. You can learn more about their stories and the Invictus Masters program by checking out their episodes right here on the Invictus Mindset podcast. If you'd like more information about the current training cycle or to join the Invictus Masters program, please email Nicole at invictusathlete.com. That's NICHOLE at invictusathlete.com.